right, welcome to another episode of Seeds of Music this Thursday morning. I'm your host, Kyle Williams, and this is the #1 web show and podcast where aspiring independent artists and do-it-yourself musicians can learn right now how to gain wider exposure, grow a strong base of raving fans, and make a living doing what they love. Now, real quick, I'm going to do some silly self-promotion here. I promise. It's only going to take 2 seconds. iTunes. We have a podcast on iTunes. If you have a mobile device and you want to be able to listen freely to the interviews in audio format, head over to iTunes, punch in Seeds of Music, Rise Above the Noise, and hit that subscribe button. You'll get all the episodes automatically downloaded to your mobile device. And if you like the show, or even if you love it, or even if you kind of sort of like it, please leave a rating. Or if you hate it, leave a rating. Just leave a rating. Yeah, leave a rating and a review of the show, because that's going to help the show rank higher within iTunes podcast search. We'll get more ears for the show, and I'll be able to get bigger and better interviews. So, with that out of the way, let's talk about our guest for today, which is Kim Boekbinder. And Kim is also known as the Impossible Girl, is a do-it-yourself independent artist who's making her living as a musician. She's always been a big proponent of the direct-to-fan marketing, which you may have heard me mention before, which is basically marketing that is a result of direct communication with your fans through social media, your website, your email list, things like that. And we're also going to talk about, essentially, the subject of this interview is when you can get art free, why would anyone pay? Now, in this case, it's when you can get music for free, why would anyone pay for that? And also, the money and art balance. If you're going for more money, does your art suffer? Or if you're focusing particularly on art, are you not making any money? I mean, does one really sacrifice the other? And as far as the internet goes, Kim's going to let us in on what she found matters and what she found that doesn't matter as much for her. So without further ado, let's jump in.
All right, Kim, man. First off, thanks for coming on to the show. I know this is actually a little bit of a time warp for anyone who's listening. Kim is all the way on the other side of the globe. It's actually...
I'm in the future.
Yeah, it's one day here, and it's actually tomorrow where she's at. So I have artificial sunlight, but she has real sunlight. So Kim, thanks for taking the time to come on.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me.
And tell us a little bit about the outfit, like the crown. What's the story behind that?
Well, this is my birthday crown because it was my birthday a couple weeks ago.
Oh, happy birthday. Belated.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm going to keep milking that. And I don't know. I really like shiny things. I'm a bit of a magpie.
Magpie? What is I don't know. What does that mean exactly? I'm kind of like
it might be a more Australian term. I guess people talk about magpies liking shiny things here a lot.
What I thought of? So it's an animal. First thing I thought of for some reason was some I don't know, some kind of food you ate. But then I thought of like a mud. This is weird, but I thought of like a mud skipper, like a fish that like jumps between like puddles. But yeah, that's how my weirdness goes off in that direction.
I'm also a bit of a mud skipper, but skipping from a genre skipper, let's say.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You've got your latest album that you put out was very much in the genre of outer space.
Yes.
And do you find that's like the strength and the uniqueness in your music is just being able to be flexible with your genres?
Well, I guess I'm going to have to think of it as a strength because it's just what I do. I mean, yeah, it's just who I am, and I like to change and explore things a lot. Okay. I think in a way it's a weakness because I don't, I have this brand that is me, I guess, if you want to think about branding, but I don't really have a strong genre brand, which I think might be confusing, not for my core fans. Those people have come along with me, and it's amazing to go from this, more singer-songwriter acoustic music that's very quiet and very personal to my last album, which is, as you said, based around the concept of space, and it's very electronic and dancey and poppy and really fun, and still has some quiet and introspective songs, but it's mostly just like super epic pop space. Yeah. And it's really cool that my fans have come along with me for that. But I think it can be kind of confusing for people, especially, if they hear one song from the last album. My first my very first solo album was a little bit all over the place genre-wise as well. So you could
Okay.
hear one song and go, "Oh, I really like this. It's very, kind of fun country about, I had this song called Sex, Drugs, and Nuclear Physics, which is really clever
Yep.
and sciencey
Pretty
and
much the same
nerdy."
thing, right?
And but it sounds very country, and you'd hear that and go, "Oh, cool." So you might go listen to the album and go, "Well, that's really the only song on there that's like that."
But
And the rest, yeah.
I mean, there's a one artist that I can think of who successfully just jumps over all sorts of genres is Beck, and
Yeah.
people like really relate to his music and the way he creates it. And I think that's totally a great way to go about it. Just like be yourself, and if you are like if you encompass like so many musical voices, then that actually becomes a singular thing. That becomes Kim.
Yeah.
So, but you've been doing this for a while. So how do you make your living as a musician?
Basically through crowdfunding. I pay for all my albums by doing Kickstarter,
Okay.
and I pay for my day-to-day life by having a monthly subscription on my website. I call it Mission Control. It started 3 years ago, and no, 2 years ago. I'm going into my third year now. And it's I basically have this core of fans who give me money every month for access to my
Okay.
private creation blog. There are things that I really like sharing. I think it's fascinating to go from like the super, like iPhone recorded version of a very rough demo and all the way through to the, pop explosion at the end, and
Yeah.
hearing a song and following the creation, and sharing all of my research and things that I see and find. And, I went for a walk today and I thought about all this stuff and I'm writing a song about it. But that's not stuff I want to share with the world at large.
Okay.
And, like sometimes putting stuff on the internet feels the same as like performing on the sidewalk. And you never want to perform your new demo song. Like you never want to write a song on the sidewalk.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. That
so,
makes sense.
so yeah, 2 years ago I was writing the Space album, and I wrote to my fans and I said, "Hey, I'm doing this experiment. I'm going to take some time off from public life and go into songwriting mode. And I'm inviting you in." And I limited it to 100 people because I felt like I wanted it to be like a really good party where I could actually have a conversation with everybody.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
felt that 100 people was probably the max.
Yeah. Actually,
And
I can
yeah,
think of
it
in
was,
Malcolm Gladwell, his book. I just had a brain fart and I can't remember. It's not Outliers, but oh man, it's the one where he talks about the tipping point, and he gave this idea of like 150 people kind of being the limit at which you can have genuine relationships with. So I think it was
right.
a great idea to have this community with like 100 people in it, that you limit it to that. So everybody, it's very special, and these are special
Yeah.
people to you.
Yeah, definitely. And it feels really good. But yeah, I'm sort of expanding on that idea now. And originally Mission Control was just going to go for a year and it was just for that album. But it changed my life to have a monthly income. And it
Mm.
wasn't like a huge amount of money, but it definitely was enough to live on and to not have to worry every month. And
Yeah.
it just gave me all of this space to create something really amazing. And I think this last album is very cohesive and really well produced just from the beginning to end because I had that space and I didn't have to be chasing everything.
And how important do you think it is as like an independent artist to really build that, I mean, super strong core group of fans? Like you could have maybe a couple thousand fans, but only 100 of them are like super, like, just really close knit, really connect with your message. I mean, how important do you think it is to really bring them in and give them a platform, like an online, whether it's online
Right.
or offline, to gather around your music?
Well, it's definitely been really important for me. I mean, I can't say that that's the way to do it for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's what is so powerful about, being alive and making music right now is that you can do it any way. And, that with the advent of the internet and all the ways that you can do things DIY, I think it's easy to expect all artists to be sharing and giving and interacting, and not all artists are like that.
Mm-hmm.
I just happen to be really interested in doing that.
Okay.
and good at connecting with people because that's what I'm doing. And if you can nurture that in yourself, it can be really great.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's not who you are, then find a different way.
Oh, okay. So it's, I mean, if an artist doesn't like, they feel like they don't have that capacity, which I mean, I personally feel like everybody has that capacity, especially when
Yeah.
it's it's your career, it's
Yeah.
something you want to do for a living. And if you're going to follow this, do it yourself path where you are connecting with the fans on your own, then it's just something you have to bite the bullet. And it's just paying it forward, to the people who support you. And I think the way you're doing it is actually is brilliant,
Thanks.
especially giving yourself that kind of monthly passive income to fund your art. And there always begs this question, and I know you wrote some like fantastic articles, which is how I found out about you in the first place because I read them on Medium. This idea that why would someone pay for art or music if they can just get it from free somewhere? I mean, what are your I know you wrote the article on it, but can you just briefly just give us an idea of what your thoughts are on that?
Yeah, well, I definitely think that we're reaching a point where we're realizing that, as more and more artists are really honest about what it takes to create their art, that we actually really have to pay for it. And in a world where it's really easy to find everything for free or nearly free, like we can just stream everything on Spotify for, I don't know how much it is per month, but that, it's pretty cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And that you don't have to buy an album anymore, but that the reason that you would is that you're paying for past work in order to fund future work.
Mm-hmm.
And if you like this artist, you're paying for something that's already out and already free because you want them to make something new.
Oh, okay.
And it's kind of like don't think of it as paying for the past, think of it as paying for the future.
Okay. That's actually a really unique way of putting it. I hadn't thought about it that way, and just to kind of expand on that, it's almost like you're an investor in a sense. You're investing in creativity or investing in art, and to help fund that. Possibly, it's not a guarantee, but possibly that next album will be better in some way. Whether they could afford to pay more, other musicians to come on and add their flavor to it, or afford better production or better mixing or mastering or anything like that. It's a great way to put it. Now, how do you feel about money and art being mixed together, being a creative, but also, also dealing, because you're dealing with everything. You're a true do-it-yourself musician, which means you got to be handling the books too. How does that make you feel?
I mean, everything becomes the art, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even the way that I'm making a living is part of my art. So that's like the really nice way of putting it.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I'm not feeling so optimistic, I say that money ruins art. And
so it's influenced by mood?
Yeah, definitely. And there's definitely like what makes art interesting is attention in your life, or attention against the friction against a boundary or a limitation or trying something new.
Okay.
And sometimes that friction is your financial limitation.
Mm-hmm.
And, like it's pretty classic that a young, struggling, super hungry artist puts out a really amazing album, makes it big, gets married, has a baby, next album sucks. And so people are like, oh man, happy people make crappy albums, which I don't think is true.
No, that's not true.
And I think it's definitely dangerous to be like, oh, crazy, unhappy people make beautiful art. And sometimes they do. But also crazy, unhappy, poor people don't make any art. Like, that's the truth, is that most people who are really poor and crazy and having a bad time don't do anything.
Yeah.
And so I think for each person, there's a different tension, but you can actually have like a really great life and be making money, mm-hmm. and also find different boundaries to push against, and be constantly creating better art.
Yeah, and be artistically valid, because I mean, it really comes down to the story you tell yourself, like as you're making art, as you're going through your life. And money, I think for most people, like I think the problem isn't necessarily the money itself, because money is just like paper and metal, like that we give value to, but it's what the story you tell yourself about how you relate to money. And I think for most artists, when they get enough of it and they stop having to worry, it's not that they lose some kind of spark. I think it's they allow themselves to get complacent. Because I can think of artists who, I mean, I consider them to at some point in their career, they didn't have to worry about money, but they still push themselves, like Miles Davis. I think is a great example of that. So, totally great example of a guy who's not only creative, but just even past success continued to push himself. So, but it's great to hear your kind of perspective on that, because you're an extremely creative person, but you're also, I think, very successful model for how other independent artists can have more success with their career. And for most of us, it means being able to support our own art. You're also like a big proponent of the internet as like an empowering medium for artists now. I mean, have you found things that, as far as internet goes, that matter and some that don't, like what works and what doesn't?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, partially I love the internet because I'm a maverick and I like constantly changing.
Mm-hmm.
I like evolving and responding to the ever-changing landscape of the internet. So that's pretty fun for me. I also don't really have, like, I've never had a label. I didn't come up in the time when everybody was getting labels. And so I can't really compare it to that. But I think the internet is this incredibly powerful tool. And it's really easy to be negative about it and to be negative about lots of things, but it doesn't, and I did think about writing some scathing anti things in my Medium pieces, and I might at some point, but I just thought that actually let's just talk about how things are good and have been good, and some things have been challenging, but how we can actually create this world that we want to live in and be paying for things, for art, for, I don't want to say charity, but like creating a better world, and paying, like actively paying attention to what education and what culture and what art gets funded. And this is like the first time in history that we can do that on a larger scale. Like, you can always do that in your community, but being able to look out at the world and see what's going on and going, you know what, I do want to help build that school in Africa, or pay for this album that's being made in Paris, or whatever.
Yeah. And, it's, as far as like specifically, the article that you wrote, cause, it was titled 1,000 likes, like, basically like, what does that exactly mean? What numbers should artists like fixate on, and what numbers should they not? I mean, should they worry about the likes on their social media? I mean, what really matters there?
I think that, likes can matter. I still definitely, I will go to somebody's Facebook page and go, okay, how many people actually like this? But that doesn't really mean that they're making a living or not making a living, or that people are coming to shows or not, that those numbers can be made to look better.
Yeah.
I've known people who bought Facebook ads, so they said, and suddenly ended up with like 20,000 likes on Facebook, but the engagement isn't there, and it's no, they still don't actually have a thing. And then, somebody with a couple thousand fans like me can be making a living. And so I do think it's important to pay attention, but
maybe quality over quantity.
Yeah, definitely quality over quantity. And I think that for me, Twitter has been the best social media. It feels like a way more engaging conversation.
Because it's not limited in terms of how many people can see what you post.
And it's just this great party that you're at, and you're having an actual conversation. And because it goes by in this stream, it sort of just, like, it happens like it would at a party, and you kind of have to be there at the time, and you can scroll back through and see what people said, and people write articles about it or whatever, but it's definitely, it feels more engaging because it's actually happening in front of you and you're part of it, and you're not just, leaving a Facebook comment or something. And that has its pluses too, but Twitter for me has definitely been the best.
Do you feel like that would apply to lots of other musicians, or do you feel like would you recommend that any independent artist, like, go out and make a Twitter account right now? Do it.
I I think you should, and I think that you should definitely try to engage with it. I see a lot of people just start Twitter accounts and then just, try to get followers
And then drop the ball.
and not yeah, and not really pay attention to it. And you might not like it. You might just feel like this is stupid. I don't want to pay attention to this. But you can actually, by following the right people or changing who you're following, and don't just follow musicians and music websites. I
Yeah.
follow all kinds of people, like this lawyer who does a lot of like he is a lawyer for people who have drones, and I follow political journalists and musicians
Yeah.
and artists and just this wide range of people. So it actually becomes an interesting conversation, and it's not just me trying to market my music. And then by having interesting conversations all the time, when I do market something, people are interested in it, and I'm
Yeah.
not just coming in and spamming once a month and going, hey guys, my shows are happening.
Yeah, you actually remind me. There's a entrepreneur, like a fantastic guy named Gary Vaynerchuk, that talks a lot about social media and telling your story. It seems like you just I don't know if you know Gary V, but it seems like you kind of fell upon that or naturally came upon that strategy because
Yeah.
you were on there to build genuine human connections. Like we're not trying to act like complete robots just because we're going through an online tool, but you're following whatever interests you, and you're kind of saying like, this is me, this is my story, this is what I'm interested in saying, and then every once in a while, when it comes time to say, hey, I've got this album coming, then people pay attention because you weren't just acting like a jerk the whole time from the beginning, saying like sending because sometimes I get direct messages and they seem like spam or tweets with my handle in them, and it'll say, check this out, and a link, and it's like, guys, no one's that's gonna turn. I don't check it out.
No,
you know,
neither do I.
I don't, because it's like that person hasn't earned it yet. You have to earn your right to ask. But it seems like you didn't have to go to a marketing school or whatever to learn that. You just went from the idea of just be genuine, and I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. And I do understand when musicians have like an anti-marketing stance, or they feel like they shouldn't be marketing themselves. It's really hard to market yourself. I hate it. I really do.
Yeah,
But at the same time, like I've also realized that when I tell people about something I'm doing, they want to know. And if they don't want to know, they'll unfollow me. It's like that simple. And sometimes I'm like, oh, am I talking about the new album too much? It's like, no, no, no. These people want to know what I'm
yeah.
doing.
I mean,
And they want to know because they've been with me all along. They've seen the whole creation, and it's really wrong to think of marketing as like, I'm not a McDonald's ad. I'm not pushing myself down everybody's throat going, pay
yeah,
attention,
but
pay
it's like
attention.
it's not your that marketing like that wouldn't work in the first place, and it's like
No.
and I understand there was resistance because I'm a musician first, before I got into marketing and entrepreneurship, and I had, even when I was first considering it, I had all like the same resistances that I see other musicians have. I'm like, oh, I'm selling my soul. Oh, I'm turning into some corporate douchebag. Oh, I am bombing a third world country because I'm, learning about business. But it just comes down to like just a very practical view. If it's like, if you want to make music, you can do that. You can make your music in your room. You can perform it at the local coffee shop or whatever. But when you want to have a career out of it, and you want people to like say like, here, I got like $1 here. Actually, it's sitting in front of me. They say, here, I want to pay you this. Yeah, take it. I want to exchange, and I worked for this. Like people work, like some of them are working jobs they don't enjoy. I mean, 80% of the country works jobs they don't enjoy. They're gonna take this hard-earned cash and give it to you. You have to know how to speak to that person. You have to know how to reach those people. And it's what I've been very. All I can say is I've been very humbled. And how do you feel like once you started learning about like marketing? I mean, did it kind of change like your perspective? I mean, did you feel like you had some misconceptions
You mean about how like
about marketing just in general that you had before you started learning about it?
um I think, I mean, I basically just learned about it through the process, and I've actually stopped paying attention so much to how to market
Hmm.
because I think it's really important to pay attention to it at some point, but then
Yeah.
I also just have to stop and just kind of learn from myself and then go back and learn more.
Okay.
But I think there's definitely like the reason that it's hard to promote yourself is because we have this whole thing against narcissism and this egotistical thing being really bad, and
Which is
at
what's
some point,
worshipped at the music industry
yeah,
at the
yeah,
highest level, which is crazy, you know?
at some point you just have to realize that if you want to perform your music or be known as any type of artist, then you're going to have to get over that
Yeah.
because there is some part of you that does want to be listened to.
Yeah.
There's some part of you that wants your voice to be heard.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make you shallow or bad. And that marketing yourself is not a bad thing. And it's not like more pure to hire somebody else to market you.
Yeah.
That just means you have money.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make you a better person.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make your art any better.
Yeah.
It just, it just means that you don't have to spend your time doing it. But it's definitely made me think more about people that I see promoting themselves a lot. And, sometimes people do it badly.
Yeah.
But
A lot of times.
yeah, but it's not wrong. It's just that you have to think about it in the context of your whole life and how, yeah, I mean, it is about how you tell your story, and that talking about, the marketing part of your story,
Yeah.
like getting people to shows and getting people to listen to the album is just a part of the art. And there's kind of this whole thing where we shame people who are seeking fame, but and we do it to ourselves too, but that it's important to get over that because fame is a really powerful tool that you can use to make your art better. Because famous people have more resources handed to them. And that if you are, let's just say I'm a totally pure artist and I don't care about the fame, but it's like, well, but you should, because that fame is going to help you make your art better. More people will come to shows, more people will buy your music, you can spend more time making your next album. And that, I guess it helps me to think about it in that way instead of just going, I want 1 million people to, pay attention, because that's like, well, why?
What's their
Actually, yeah. And that's okay, like if you do, because that could just be a total high and totally cool.
Yeah.
But it's also interesting to go, well, actually, if 1 million people pay attention, then I can use that to create the next thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and just spread your your message, and if a million people listen, then 30% of those will follow, and then a percentage of them will want to support you, and then you have your own small movement, you have your own small cultural movement that's gathered around not only just your music but your personality, and more importantly, the feelings that you give them through the music, like the feelings they get when they listen to your music. But Kim, I have one last fun question. I'm going to see if this trips you up. I hope it does. Okay. Here it comes. What is your favorite album, and what would your life be like if it never existed?
My favorite album hasn't been written yet.
Whoa, okay. I'm interested. I'm intrigued by this answer. Continue.
And I say that because I don't have a favorite album. And
talk about significant album.
I think that, significant album. Yeah, okay, that trips me up.
Sorry. Happy birthday, by the way. This is a birthday present.
Yeah, thanks. I feel like I should take my crown off now. I think it's
only
hindering
if you can't
my
answer
ability
this.
to. Yeah, no, I'm going to stick with my original answer that it hasn't been written yet. And my life, if it never existed.
And if the album that never existed never existed.
Right.
This
okay,
is
well,
a
the
conundrum.
answer
I mean, what is this? It's like a paradox we've been sucked into.
Maybe my life is my favorite album.
Oh, there you go.
And it doesn't exist yet.
Okay.
But it's amazing.
You are in the future, and I'm in the past, and we are speaking through electrical pulses. traveling through
I'm also the
metal.
queen of the future.
Yes, yes.
But
Okay.
you'll never get here, so you'll never know.
Well, I'm actually gonna go out and buy another crown for you and send it to you, and it will be like your crown for the most awesome response to that question. I will always remember that. Most people they get stumped and they say, "Oh, can I name two?" Or they're able to name one. Most of the time, they can't think of what to say for like about what seems like forever. But yeah, I love that answer there, actually.
Cool. I will send you my address for my crown.
Okay, right on. I might actually just be a Burger King crown. I'll just go get like a, I'll just get like a Big Mac or a Whopper. Actually, I won't even, I don't eat Whoppers. I'm not encouraging anybody to do that. But I think I
Could
can.
you make me a crown out of dollar bills?
Paper mache. Yes. Wait, I
Okay,
don't have that
cool.
many lying around. Oh. Actually, that and old envelopes.
It could be a small crown.
Okay. I used to do I went to I got an art degree in college, and I did some paper mache in some of my classes. So maybe I can whip up some paper mache. We're good to
Okay.
go. Okay.
Cool.
All right, Kim. Yeah, thanks again for coming on, man.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
And that wraps up this week's episode of Seeds of Music. On the show, we had Kim Bookbinder. Make sure to check out her links below and give all of your support you can possibly manage, because she's a great artist with a great vision and great strategy. If you haven't heard, she also has a lot of cool articles that she's writing on Medium, which is an online blog authoring. Well, it's more like an online article authoring, writing type of program. Really, really awesome interface. She's got a few articles up there that are really worth a read if you are an independent artist that is trying to make their way through the music industry without a label and actually make a living. Next, sign up for the email newsletter. If you haven't already, this is the best way to stay up to date with not only the interviews, but all special newsletter-only content that gets put out through Seeds of Music. And just to repeat it here quick, the podcast, subscribe to it, head over to iTunes, punch in Seeds of Music, Rise Above the Noise, hit the subscribe button to get all the episodes automatically downloaded. And please, please leave a rating and a review of the show. Would love you forever if you did that. And also, if you like this interview, we have a like and a tweet button above and below, and we also have a big share button on Facebook right below this video on the page. And lastly, comment on the video. What was your greatest revelation from this interview, and how will you apply what you've learned? Who would you like to see interviewed next? If that person is you, just send an email to kyle.seedsmusic@gmail.com. I answer every email. At the most, it takes me 2 days to get back, but rest assured I will get back to you. And remember, we are the future of music.